Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Eugenia Larmore joins us. She's the president of Ekay Economic Consultants. We will learn a lot about money coming up after this. Big R in Sparks is located on Bering Boulevard next to Smith's and across from Reed High School for workwear and everyday wear. Evaporative coolers, outdoor living, Weber's, Traeger's, and Lodge. Fill your propane tanks here. Big R on Bering Boulevard in Sparks, next to Smith's and across from Reed High School. Big R. Hardware, clothing, and a whole lot more.
Fantastic cocktails and delicious food.
It's a good time to eat.
Over 500 hot slots, plus electronic table games.
It's a good time to play.
Player rewards and big-time jackpots.
It's a good time to win.
Ooh, your good times at Tamarack.
The casino industry drove Nevada's economy for decades. By the 1990s, however, the state's sole industry was in sharp decline. Many were losing their homes, many were leaving the state. Is Reno on track to be the Detroit of the West? Was an October 2010 Reno Gazette-Journal headline. Nevada knew it was time for a change and a time to diversify. Story County took that lead, took risks, invested tens of millions transforming its desert into a place of opportunity and a future for Nevada families needing something new. That desert now provides thousands of high-paying tech, advanced manufacturing, and energy careers at companies like Tesla, Panasonic, Google, Switch, and Redwood Materials. Story County transformed Northern Nevada forever, and the tide of opportunity has raised all vessels through construction contracts, high-paying careers, and the power of payroll. Tens of millions have been generated in sales and property tax, permits, and other revenues for Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, and for all of Nevada. Enough, in fact, to generate a surplus after public services are provided. And best of all, a sustainable economic climate has been created, enabling our children to stay in Nevada and live prosperous lives in their home state. Story County, improving Northern Nevada one industry at a time.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad on No Holds Barred Political Forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we are delighted to welcome back to the program Eugenia Larmore. She has a PhD, MBA, and president of Ekay Economic Consultants. My first question should be, what the heck are you doing here talking to me? But I am very glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. So the Fed raised the rates again, but it seems like they're going to be on a pause now. So it went up by 0.25%. What are your thoughts on where the economy is at this point in time? Are we heading to that, quote, soft landing?
I think we've recently had some optimistic news that maybe we are closer to a soft landing than a hard recession that I think a lot of us expected when this first began. So I think the Fed is very carefully watching the data. Data is kind of the king at this point. Where are we with inflation versus where are we with labor? Because obviously the whole point of this is to slow inflation by taking out the demand, right? Inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. We're trying to take the money out of the equation to lower the prices of things. The issue with that is you start pulling money out of the economy and you create unemployment, right? Businesses don't have as much revenue, they don't hire. So the Fed is really watching the two numbers to balance and to make sure they don't overshoot, fix the inflation at the expense of labor.
So isn't that the dirty secret of capitalism, which is that you need a certain level of unemployment to keep wages in check?
In a way, yes. In that we don't want, in this economy, we haven't figured out how to provide goods and services to everybody who wants them. We have too much money. We poured quite a bit of money into the economy during the COVID pandemic.
That would be the understatement of the year.
Following the pandemic, we are still flowing through those funds. We need to cut off spending. And part of that is by taking money out of people's pockets so they don't spend. So I don't think it's being, I mean, that's not necessarily the intent to hurt anybody, but
right.
we certainly need to slow down on that spending. And surprisingly, and I think that's part of the reason that the Fed continues to increase rates, is we have not curbed the spending. People are now borrowing. Our credit card rates are at historically high levels because people are still spending at the post-COVID exuberance levels, but they're still spending.
But that is, to me, a very dangerous thing because, you know, years ago, interest rates on credit cards were 12%. If you screwed up, you might get as bad as 18%. Now, if you screw up, credit card rates are 30% plus. Those are insane. The mafia would be embarrassed to charge those kinds of rates. So if people are going down that road, and they obviously are, of increasing their credit card debt, then that potential for a big downfall is there, not just for them, but for the institutions as well.
Absolutely, and I think the government and we as economists, we expect people to be rational. We expect that if your credit card rates are 30%, you will stop spending. That has not happened, and what's interesting is that the spending has shifted. It went from manufactured goods. The manufactured sector is actually suffering right now because their orders are down. We're spending on services. We're spending on restaurants and travel and things like that. That actually creates a mismatch in our economy where we're losing manufacturing jobs, the high-paying technology, manufacturing, R&D jobs, and we're gaining, you know, the lower-paying service jobs. And so that's another danger for the economy, is we're creating some jobs at the expense of others, and they're on the wage side, those are the lower wage jobs.
It was interesting to read the numbers over the last couple of weeks that, and this is an interesting thing to understand, for me at least, is that because the immigration rates have gone up, because the federal government has allowed more people to come into the country legally, it has kind of dampened the problem with the employment numbers, because the employment numbers keep going up, but they're now going up because of people coming into the country, not because of people within the country. Does that add up for you?
In some ways it does, because if you lost your job in the manufacturing or the technology sector, and those jobs are not being recreated or not recreated as quickly, you're probably less likely to, at least seriously full-time, get a job in the service sector. We need to have people come and backfill those jobs. You know, I was reading an article, we love naming things. There's this thing called the rich recession. And so it's the recession for the rich people, and as what I was talking about, the people in the higher paying sectors are losing their jobs. Again, the technology, the finance, the manufacturing, they have cushions to fall on. They have savings, they have the education, they maybe get retrained into other sectors. So we're not seeing kind of the loss of these jobs, we're not feeling them in the economy because they're not going through the system with unemployment, with being reported as being unemployed. So kind of an aside, but that's one of the issues that's happening. But we've always needed immigration. I think especially in this case where we do have such labor shortages, especially in the lower skilled services and sectors, that's very important that we continue to do that, especially as our demographics are going towards less work participation as their population ages.
Yes, which is a worldwide problem. I mean, you look at Japan, for example, and even China, and the aging populations, and especially with China's policy, the one-child policy over the years, they are really starting to get hit by that. I wanted to go back to something you were saying earlier, which is about the tech industry. It was kind of funny because when the Fed started raising the rates and the idea was to cut the inflation, I expected jobs to be lost. I didn't expect the jobs to be lost in the tech industry to such an extent. Was this I don't want to say the word excuse, but I guess I'm going to, for the tech companies to cut the fat, basically?
It's interesting because as soon as we started talking about increase in interest rates, we started talking about recession. Elon Musk was on TV, and I don't remember if it was an online thing or an interview, but he said that this is it, companies, this is your time to start cutting costs and get more efficient. So certainly if he is kind of the representative of the tech industry, that was part of the idea, is that we've had very rich years. We had years where you could get almost free credit.
Right.
This is going to hurt, let's get more efficient. So that certainly seems to have been at least part of the plan.
Well, and you know, in talking to people in the gaming industry, that was something that's occurred over the last several years because of COVID, is that the gaming industry in all of their services became incredibly efficient. And they are making much more money now because of all the cutbacks they made. But it was kind of under the radar here, but that was all happening 2-3 years ago.
Absolutely, and we're also seeing now that labor is becoming more scarce and more expensive as the wages increase. There's going to be a lot of technology. There's a push to replace labor with technology. In the long run, that becomes less expensive.
All right, but the other side of the coin, because you bring up a really valid point, but the other side of the coin is, if you look at the Industrial Revolution, which I was not there for that, by the way, the jobs were replaced. People had other jobs that were created because of what was happening with the Industrial Revolution. Do you see the same thing happening now and ongoing?
We're absolutely, I said we're losing technology jobs now, but we're absolutely going to need technology jobs to maintain the AI, to make sure they don't take over the world, right? We've all seen those movies. But the technology jobs are going to be the next wave of growth. You're made to replace the service with the automation, but you need to maintain it, you need the R&D, and you need things like that. So we are creating quite a bit of jobs on that side of things. It's been interesting in northern Nevada especially to see the big tech companies that are located in northern Nevada going to the university system and to the community colleges and saying, these are the workers we're going to need, you need to help us train these people. It seems like that's already the direction that they're all going in. And they should absolutely be going in those directions, because we all think the 4-year education is great, and it obviously, as a beneficiary of a lot of college education, it is, but if that's where the world is going, we really need to be flexible with it. And if we have decline in labor force, we need to be flexible. And for the companies to come to the universities, and even as low as high schools, and to say, this is who we need to be producing, these are the employees of the future, absolutely, this is efficiency. We shouldn't be creating jobs that will not, or employees that will not find jobs in the future.
It's funny, it's becoming in a way more like, for example, the English system of education, where you have to make decisions in high school at age 16 and 18 as to what direction you want to go in. Are you going to go to college? Are you going to get an apprenticeship? Or are you just going to go into the workforce? We have been encouraging people for so long to go to university. Now we're seeing the federal government trying to work out deals to pay off all these student loans that people have. Really, we need people in all sectors.
Absolutely, and some sectors more than others, and some that we've never really paid too much attention.
For example?
Construction, plumbing, HVAC. we are years behind projects. I was just reading an article. Construction projects across the U.S. are behind because they just simply don't have enough labor to do that.
Yeah, in my other life as an advertising agency executive, I have so many clients that are desperate for employees. They could do so much more if they had more people. Let's take a break. Lots more to talk about with Eugenia Larmore after this timeout.
Carson Valley Inn, it's your place for the good times. Carson Valley Inn.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the air conditioning back on today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why sweat for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your air conditioning fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Eugenia Larmore. She is a PhD, MBA, and president of Ekay Economic Consultants. So let's talk about inflation again for a moment. It seems to me that one of the examples of not mistaken policy, but not really understanding the effects. When there was all this noise about, we got to pay people $15 an hour minimum wage, even though in Nevada that was almost a joke because you couldn't get anybody to work for $15 an hour. You had to be way higher than that. But you are now seeing those prices reflected in your cost of goods. So I was in line at a sandwich shop the other day, and a gal in front of me who I did not know turned around and said, "I can't believe I'm going to pay $20 for this sandwich." Do you see those prices ever going down, or are we now at that level?
Wages are sticky. It is very hard for wages to ever go down. And we hear all the time that we need to make businesses pay for things. We need to increase wages, and the businesses barely ever absorb the costs. If every time you create a government regulation that increases the cost of production, you increase wages, you increase anything that the cost of that business operating, you're going to be paying for that through the price. So wages are sticky. Even during the Great Recession, we fired people. We didn't reduce wages as much. So this is the new normal. It's very hard to imagine a world where we're going to wholesale lose the wage gains that we have experienced in the next year, in the past few years. I think the goal for inflation is to stabilize at, the Fed wants 2%. That means we're not going backwards. These are the new prices. They're going to increase by a slower rate in the future, but we're not going to see significant declines.
The Fed's target rate is 2%. But in reality, and this is pretty simple math, over 5 years without compounding the interest, that's a 10% increase. So we're always looking for prices to increase, correct?
Correct. We actually, the opposite of inflation is called deflation, and we don't want to be in the deflation mode. It means that there's no demand for your products. Things are sitting on the shelves, nobody wants to buy things. It's a really bad economic position to be in. So we want inflation. We just want inflation to not be 9%. And I think Historically, long-term averages have been about 3%. The Fed wants 2%, but anything that's maintainable, this will also allow the wages to catch up. In the last few years, our wages have exceeded, or actually the last about a year, our wages haven't exceeded inflation. We like to see that for the labor side of things. Obviously, you're also paying for that. But we really don't want to get to the point where where prices are falling.
Which is an ironic point there. But here's the other side of the coin, and you and I have talked about this on the program before, which is one of the places where the interest rates being higher is good is for senior citizens and people who are savers. They are now able to go into safe locations like CDs and be able to make 4.5%, 5%. In some cases, I saw some rates 5.4%. This is good for them.
Absolutely. This is, as with basically anything that happens in the economy, this is great for people who are saving. This is not bad for people who bought their house a few years ago at near record low rates. It's when it comes to the borrowers. The commercial real estate industry is really struggling through this. If they have loans coming due, they may or may not be able to pencil projects. We may not see significant new projects coming to market because of the cost to build those.
Okay, but here's the irony. If you go back, 30 years, for example, there were interest rates on second mortgages for 17%. I mean, a 5%, 6% mortgage rate is not that terrible. Isn't that really more what we should be thinking of as the norm?
Yes and no. The prices back then were significantly lower.
That's true.
The price to wage ratio is off now compared to what it was back then.
But isn't that incumbent on the building industry to figure out ways to make less expensive homes?
Yes and no. Yes, but if, again, just was reading an article, 40% of multifamily, on average, 40% of multifamily construction cost is government fees. You, as a building industry, you can cut costs all you want. That's just going to be a cost that's embedded in your construction. We're hearing a lot of information from builders where, because of the labor shortages, their subcontractors, the prices have declined slightly. We're kind of rebuilding our prices again, but the subcontractor costs are going up significantly higher. So there's only so much on the builder side you can do. I think part of it needs to be a governmental intervention as well.
That's a shocking statistic. I mean, that dropped me right in my tracks. Let's take another break. We'll recover right after this.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Early in the morning or throughout the night, professional truck drivers are on the job, serving you, safely moving freight that's crucial to our economy. From the oldest industries to our newest innovators, from the exotic to the everyday, trucks are everywhere, moving everything. Never afraid to embrace a future that makes Nevada and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Eugenia Larmore. She is the president of Ekay Economic Consultants. AI, it strikes me that a media that really doesn't delve too deeply into anything these days is going crazy over AI. But I get the sense that, yes, we should be aware of it and its potential, but it ain't going to happen in the next couple of years that the world is going to be taken over by robots and they're going to tell us what to do. What's your thoughts on this?
Not yet. It certainly is creating a lot of waves in a lot of industries. There was just recently a case of some attorneys using AI to write a brief, and it turned out that some of the cases that they cited were wrong. They got into quite a bit of trouble. I'm hearing the legal profession is using AI for creating deposition questions, for helping with research. So it's definitely being utilized at kind of an aid level where it simplifies certain things. Can I think of any industries where it's completely has replaced labor and is being relied on? Not yet. I think it's definitely a work in progress. But the speed with which we're seeing the adoption of that technology is quick. There's a lot of interest in it.
Well, you know, what's been interesting is, you know, a few years ago, you had the auto industry talking about autonomous technology, and then all of a sudden, they stopped talking about it. But the reality is that each year that goes by, there are more things within a car that are autonomous to help you with safety, etc., with your driving. So do you get the sense that AI is going to incrementally increase like that rather than a big changeover?
I think it's more cost effective, and I think it's more mentally acceptable for us to suddenly have a thing in your car that helps you park versus your entire car is self-driving. So I think it's definitely a little more palatable for people to have that slow incremental cost. Plus, it also allows the technology to catch up and fix the issues with autonomous driving. There was obviously some issues. Technology is not perfect, and we need to continue to work on it, but it is heartening to see that it's being brought into our lives incrementally. So it really kind of helps with the problems as well as the solutions.
And that's where we have to leave it. Thank you so much for doing this. Please come back soon.
Thank you for having me.
You're always welcome, and we'll be right back.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
Modern boutique Ahern Hotel and Event Center sits at the heart of the Las Vegas Strip. 2 floors of meeting and event space are ideal for groups and conventions. Stay in one of 200 luxurious rooms and suites. Brand your event throughout the property. Flexible event spaces make for easy planning and personalization. Take over the entire hotel with a full buyout option.
Thanks for watching Nevada Newsmakers. You can catch us online 24 hours a day at nevadanewsmakers.com, or you can download the podcast wherever you like to get your podcasts. We'll see you on the next broadcast.